Well, good evening. And on behalf of the New England chapter of JDRF, it's my extreme pleasure to welcome you this evening. As you heard in the video from Sam, the focus of tonight is how JDRF is writing the greatest recipe, a cure for type 1 diabetes. My interest in the recipe is right here next to me, my daughter Cecilia. And my wife Nani and I decided to bring her with us to this year's gala. And I really look forward to sharing the evening with her. She enjoys both cooking and science, so I'm sure she'll be on the pursuit of a recipe of her own at some point. We have a terrific evening planned where, in addition to Sam Talbot, we will celebrate some of our local chefs, if you will. Tonight's recipients of the Nancy Jones Diabetes Champion Awards: Maureen Hill Collins, Laurie Lafell, Joann Thompson, and Howard Wolpert. You can applaud. There are masters in the JDRF kitchen, each bringing their own special talents to the table. And I personally thank each one of you here tonight for your unwavering commitment to our mission. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank our event leadership, in particular Sean Doherty, our Gala Development Chair and Vice President for Development, and Sherry Cashman, our Gala Committee Chair. Amy Montalto, who you'll see floating around the room, and her staff worked tirelessly to make this night possible, a night where we hope to raise over $1.3 million. I would also like to thank my fellow board members and their committees. I'd like to ask that every board member, old and new, and members of the committees, please stand for a recognition. I'm very honored to work with this exceptional group of people in the JDRF mission. And the Boston Gala has a rich history of leadership. Many of our past honorees are here with us tonight as well. I invite past honorees to stand and be recognized: Sean and Susie Doherty, Jack and Mary Jane Kerrigan, and Keith and Elizabeth Wexelblatt. And finally, of course, the good people of the Boston Marriott Copley Place, who each and every year astound us with their exceptional generosity and hospitality. We thank you for having us back again. Tonight's program is filled with some new elements in addition to the old favorites. We'll have an exciting live auction and a menu of really intriguing items. We hope you took a moment to visit with our artist in residence this evening, David Anson Russo, working on the piece over in the corner. It's going well, David? All right. So I really love the invitation and that you drew up, and can't wait to see the final piece. And finally, we'll cap off the evening with some dancing to Splash in our little lounge area in the back, which I think you'll all enjoy. So in the meantime, before we get to our formal program, Ceci needs to cover a few housekeeping items. All right, Ceci.
The silent auction will close after the third item in the live auction. Have no fear, your bid pal device will work in this room, so feel free to keep bidding. That means you, Uncle Tommy. If you do not like to leave it to chance, there is a buy it now option where you can assure that that must-have item is yours and yours alone. Also, if you missed it, someone in this room will be going home tonight with a new pair of diamond earrings from our friends at Hanush Jewelers. There are a few chances left. You can find this at the featured item at your BidPal home screen. Once you purchase a chance, a volunteer will bring you a glow bracelet. We will reveal the winner a little later in our program, so be sure to keep that bracelet or bracelets handy. We wouldn't want you to miss out on your chance. If you need assistance, see one of our volunteers.
Thanks, Ceci. There are also a number of silent There are also a number of silent auction items that you can keep bidding on your BidPal device as well. So look for the volunteers with the bracelets and keep bidding on the BidPals. So in closing, these evenings are very special to me and my family. We've come to really enjoy the range of emotions that are felt on Gala night. The sadness as one reflects on those that we're connected to that are dealing with type 1 diabetes. The pride that we celebrate in the individuals in our community that are fighting the battle to cure this disease. The joy of connecting with others in this room that are sharing the same situation we are. And the last, the exhilaration of raising a lot of money to support JDRF and its mission, turning type 1 into type none. So it's time now to launch our formal program and the first ingredient in our all-important recipe for the cure for type 1 diabetes.
Everyone knows that a good recipe starts with a strong base. If you are making a soup, you need to have a homemade stock. The stock of the JDRF recipe is their outreach program. Outreach starts from day one, when a volunteer brings a bag of hope to a newly diagnosed family. From there, it's personal mentorships, friendships, parent support groups, kids meeting kids events, and educational symposiums. After 44 years, we are still using the homemade stock of JDRF founders Laurie and Lee Ducat. This is how JDRF is writing the recipe for the cure.
Good evening. My name is Adam Roos, and I have had type 1 diabetes for 16 years. Early on the morning of January 8th, 1998, my mother took me to see my pediatrician, as I was constantly thirsty and frequently urinating. When we arrived, the doctor took a blood glucose reading, and upon seeing the result, asked a nurse to accompany me while he spoke to my mother. I remember with clarity the terror on her face as she walked out of his office. That was the last time I saw that expression on her. From January 8th on, my mother and father became my rock, teaching me not only how to care for my diabetes, but also how to be a responsible person. As I grew older and more competent in my care, my mother began to branch out, offering the same love and support she gave to me to the hundreds of families suffering through the same shock she experienced on that January morning. I can safely say that she has changed lives all over the state. Tonight I have the distinct honor of introducing my mother, Joann Thompson, and to publicly thank her for her love, comfort, and support. Mom, would you please come join me on the stage to accept the Nancy Jones Diabetes Champion Award. Thank you so much for all you've done for both myself and all the families and lives you have changed. I love you, Mom, and congratulations.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much for this wonderful award. I am very honored to receive it. Adam, you are my hero, and I can't tell you how many times that your strength in dealing with this disease and the grace with which you manage it has inspired me. You keep me going. JDRF has been a savior to me. Not only is JDRF our key to finding a cure for type 1 diabetes, but it's also an organization filled with remarkable people. I want to thank the JDRF staff who has been there for me over the 15 years and made my job as a volunteer easy. I am consistently struck by your unbelievable hard work, your passionate drive to find a cure, and a genuine compassion for all of us living with this disease. Thank you so much.
Thank you all very much, and please enjoy your dinner.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome a 12-year board member and managing director at Bain Capital, Sean Doherty.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Sean Doherty, and I want to thank all of you for coming out again in many, many cases. I see so many familiar faces. Thanks for coming again to the JDRF Gala and for your great support for this really important cause. I hope you enjoyed your dinner. So we're going to launch into the rest of the formal program now. My wife Susie and I have been working with JDRF since our son Finn was diagnosed with this disease 11 and a half years ago, just days after his second birthday. I'm standing here tonight because it's my life's mission, as I know it is for many of you in this room, not to rest until we have cured type 1 diabetes. I believe that JDRF will be the driver of the cure, and it has our unwavering support. I'm going to ask all of you a little bit later tonight to dig deep, and you really can't be shy. That's because the people in this room are the people who are 0, 1, or 2 degrees of separation from type 1 diabetes. Many of you here are among the 2 million adult Americans who have type 1 diabetes. Many of you have a child or a sibling or a grandchild or a niece or a nephew with type 1 diabetes. Many of you are coaches, teachers, or maybe just parents of a best friend who's someone who's battling this disease. If we don't all step up, JDRF simply cannot achieve its goal. And now is not the time to ease up. You may have heard the frustrating results over the past couple of weeks of a study that said that the number of newly diagnosed American children with type 1 diabetes increased 21% over just an 8-year period. Unfortunately, I can't say it surprised me, but folks, now is the time for action. Fortunately, there has never been so much promise. Never before have we had so many real, promising treatment, cure, and prevention therapies in the pipeline. We are going to cure this disease, and over the next hour, I'm going to ask, and sometimes beg, for you to join us. Before dinner, we honored Joann Thompson for her longtime contributions to our first ingredient, outreach. We'll now move on to our second ingredient.
The next key ingredient in JDRF's recipe is funding the most promising research across their mission to cure, treat, and prevent type 1 diabetes. With 24 MD, PhDs on staff, JDRF is able to identify the best scientific research happening in the world and select innovative technology projects that can benefit the T1D community. In 2012, JDRF contributed $110 million to research projects in 17 countries, including more than $14 million to institutions right here in the greater Boston area. This is how JDRF is writing the recipe for the cure.
So it's now my distinct pleasure to present the Nancy Jones Diabetes Champion Award for Research to Dr. Laurie Lafell and Dr. Howard Wolpert of the world-renowned Joslin Diabetes Center. JDRF is very pleased to fund over 60% of Joslin's T1D research and enjoys long-term status as Joslin's #1 funder. In addition to being two of the finest endocrinologists in Boston, these two esteemed researcher physicians were collaborators in the first study to demonstrate the efficacy of the continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, funded by JDRF. On the basis of the trial results, which were published in the New England Journal of Medicine, several major health insurers broadened coverage for use of CGM, setting the stage for wide-scale adoption of this important and potentially life-saving technology that protects our loved ones from dangerous lows and debilitating highs, and helping JDRF to define its mission of less until none. As a personal note, our son Finn starts on the CGM tomorrow, and so with Finn's thanks, I'm thrilled to recognize Dr. Lafell and Dr. Wolpert.
I thank the JDRF for this honor, and I accept this recognition on behalf of the 40 members of our pediatric, adolescent, and young adult team at the Joslin Diabetes Center. I am a pediatric endocrinologist, epidemiologist, and clinical investigator, and I am the chief of the pediatric team at Joslin. Like all of you here, I am focused on finding an end to type 1 diabetes. And I thank JDRF for their tireless efforts to fund research to cure and to prevent type 1 diabetes. JDRF funds multiple critical areas like beta cell regeneration, prevention of type 1 diabetes, artificial pancreas systems, and therapies to prevent or treat eye and kidney complications. And JDRF does more than fund research. JDRF provides advocacy and support so that the newest and best advances in diabetes care and treatments are available to each and every person with type 1 diabetes, like continuous glucose monitoring, CGM. Like Finn's father said, JDRF funded the major CGM study that provided the critical data for insurers to reimburse CGM for persons with type 1 diabetes. And I was privileged to co-chair that national study that was published in the New England Journal of Medicine in 2008. I have worked with JDRF for decades, receiving JDRF funding for research, as a reviewer for JDRF grants, as chair of the Review Committee for Clinical Research, as co-chair of the Committee to Expand Behavioral Research, and as a member of the International JDRF Advisory Board. But most of all, and like all of you, I want to support JDRF in their efforts to fund research, to improve care, and to find a cure for you, for your husbands and wives, your sons and daughters, your sisters and brothers, your grandparents, your friends, and all your loved ones who have type 1 diabetes, so that we will never again need to hear the voice of a young child, my young patient Lily, say the following words. When I realized I had diabetes, I got scared. I thought I would die. My mom even got scared. She thought her kid might die. Never again. Thank you.
Historically, the JDRF has focused on pediatric research, so for me as an adult diabetologist, it's really a particular and great pleasure to receive this award and to be acknowledged for the translational work which I did with Laurie and other investigators in the JDRF CGM trial to improve the lives of people with diabetes with CGM. My ties with the JDRF go back 25 years. In 1989, I received a JDRF fellowship, which supported me during the first few years of my career and really set me on my professional course. And for that, I'll be ever grateful to the JDRF. In 1989, 25 years ago, that was before the Diabetes Control and Complications trial, before the whole intensive insulin therapy era. And I think few people at that time could have imagined that we would have made such progress in terms of actually reducing the outcome, the risk for complications in people with diabetes. And the JDRF, as was mentioned, has played a really important role in this. Funding the JDRF CGM trial, which was, as mentioned, opened up the door for CGM coverage for adults with type 1 diabetes. As an adult diabetologist, I have some comments for Sean Doherty and for all the other parents here, and this is based on my experience and my perspectives taking care of hundreds of adults with type 1 diabetes, some of them now 70 to 80 years of old. And the point I'd like to make, and I think a message that's often overlooked, is that with the tools we have to manage diabetes today, most of the fears that you have around devastating complications, whether it's fear of blindness or amputations or renal failure, are really very, very exceedingly rare in most adults with type 1 diabetes who have expert diabetes care. And what I think you should also remember, and I'd add, is the fact that most of these are people who don't actually achieve perfect glucose control. And as I often remind my patients, just strive to do what you can with your diabetes, dealing with all the competing life demands that you have to face in addition to managing your diabetes. And don't strive for perfection, because in the end, perfection is just a recipe for burnout. Beyond the quest for the cure, I think the JDRF has an important role in facing a number of the major challenges that we have to really address. And foremost, I think, particularly following on the accomplishments of the JDRF in translational research with the CGM trial, is to focus on ensuring that the advancements in science and in technology get into the hands of patients with diabetes everywhere. The other big area which I face as an adult diabetologist, while the microvascular complications of diabetes are diminished, is the fact that many adults with type 1 diabetes still get hit by heart disease. That's another area where the JDRF needs to focus its attention. So I'm going to end and once again thank the JDRF for their support for me in my career and for their advancement towards the cure and improving care for people with diabetes everywhere.
Congratulations, Dr. Lafell and Dr. Wolpert, and thank you on behalf of all of our loved ones. So let's move on to the third ingredient in our recipe. We cannot cure type 1 diabetes with research alone, in the sense of delivering great outcomes to our loved ones with this disease. Our goal can't happen unless we bring along the FDA, bring along other government agencies, insurance companies, business partners, and obtain additional funding from the US Congress. The ingredient of advocacy is essential to have our voices heard, to give context to the challenges our loved ones face, and to give a hearing to our talented doctors and scientists as they move toward the first ever cure of an autoimmune disease. Advocacy says that the 3 million Americans who suffer with this disease do not want anyone's pity, but they want action. Advocacy shows the world that we are taking matters into our own hands. We're helping our loved ones conquer a pernicious disease that, step by step, we are beating back and we will one day eradicate.
Sometimes, when you're making magic in the kitchen, you need fresh basil from the neighbor's garden. Each and every year, JDRF doubles its impact by leveraging funding from the US government, NIH, and engaging advocates through a myriad of grassroots activities, including local Promise to Remember Me visits, email campaigns, and a very unique entity called Children's Congress, where child delegates from every state fill the halls of Congress to share their stories and put a face to T1D. This is how JDRF is writing the recipe for the cure.
Hi everyone, I'm Sam Collins and I've had diabetes since 2005.
Hi, my name is Justin Collins. I was diagnosed in 2010 at age 20.
So often we talk about how much diabetes affects the lives of the people who actually have it. My life, like many of those that you care about, has been swamped by insulin doses, blood sugar calculations, lows and highs since the time that you were diagnosed. But what we don't